All right. Call the meeting to order. Let's do the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Welcome, everyone. It's nice to have the board all back in one room. I appreciate that. It seems like we get a lot more accomplished that way. It makes up for this chance. We're here to do approval of the LCSC 2020-2021 ECA/athletic participation guidelines. I need a motion, please. Brian Johnson makes a motion. Need a second, please. Ms. Vance. Mr. Gailey.
I'd like to take a few minutes just to review. I have up here on the screen, but if we do have people that are tuning in through our YouTube channel, you may not be able to see this on the screen. So if you go to our corporation's website, www.elbird.k12.in.us, right on the home page, there's a news section. You'll be able to see it right there where it will say in the bottom kind of left middle under news, it says Sports Star Draft Athletic Participation Guidelines. So if you want to follow along, you can pull that document off our corporation's website to be able to see that. Because I know it'll be hard. We tested this out and it was hard to see. So wanted to first thank our admin team. I wanted to thank a lot of our directors that participated in the committee to be able to help me put together this draft athletic participation guidelines. So our principals were involved in that, our athletic directors were involved in it. Wanted to thank our attorneys were involved in it, providing some waivers that you'll see in it. So we came up with this draft athletic participation guideline. A lot of it is really going to be scripted from the IHSA. So when you see the 3 phases that we're going to go through, those are straight from the in-class document that the state provided to us. So a lot of that language. But starting right here, you'll see some general guidelines that we did frame up that are overarching. First thing that will be highlighted right there, all summer activities are voluntary. That we're basically letting parents know that if you do not feel comfortable sending your child in, that it is voluntary, that it's up to you to make that best choice for your child. So then it goes on to number 2, and number 2 says all parents, guardians, and student athletes will be required to sign 2 documents. They will be at the end of this document. The first one is the assurance waiver form. The second one is an IHSA 2021 health history update questionnaire and consent release certificate. The IHSA put the certificate, you'll see it at the end of this document. The reason they have this health history update questionnaire is because they have basically allowed all forms for last year for physicals to roll over to this year. So if a student had a physical last year, it rolls over and is eligible again this year, unless there was a health issue noted in it. That health issue has to be rectified and a release before they can start over. But this is kind of a health history update. You'll see it at the end. So you can see starting right here, number 3 of our document. Staff, parents, guardians, and student athletes are expected to self-screen for any symptoms prior to arriving to an athletic event. That's practice, rehearsals, workouts, team activity, or competitions. You can see the self-screening with symptoms. You can see what those symptoms are that we have listed. This comes from CDC guidance. This document has also been approved by our local health professionals. So Dr. Elison, which is our county health doctor, has reviewed this and he's approved it as well. All of the symptoms are listed there, from fevers all the way down to chills, coughs, all the way down through L. And then you have B, return to school after exclusion. So once a student employee is excluded from the school environment, they may return if they satisfy the recommendations of the CDC. Currently, those guidelines are, and here's the guidelines. So number 1, if you're untested, the person who has not received a test, proving or disproving the presence of COVID-19, but they did experience symptoms, may return after the following 3 conditions are met. Number 1, they do not have a fever for at least 72 hours, that's without medication to reduce the fever. And number 2, other symptoms have improved. And 3, at least 10 calendar days have passed since their symptoms have appeared. And then there's a state website that has testing facilities, locations if they wanted to go be tested. Around here currently, we have the community center here in Lawrenceburg. We have the hospital. Those are our 2 locations right here locally. But I know the community center will be closing in the middle of July. So we'll have to wait as school gets closer to see if there's another location or just the hospital will be our main location. Number 2, if they test positive and are symptomatic, this means the person has experienced symptoms and has tested for COVID-19. They may return to school if the following conditions are met. Same thing. Number 1, no longer have a fever. And number 2, symptoms improve. And 3, at least 10 calendar days have passed since the symptoms first appeared. Or 4, they could, an individual has received a negative test. So they have to meet those first 3 things, or they have to have a negative test. So that's if they test positive or symptomatic. Third one would be if they test positive and they're asymptomatic. Person who has not had any symptoms, but they did test positive for COVID-19, they may return when they've gone through 10 calendar days without symptoms and have been released by a healthcare provider. The student may also return if they are approved to do so in writing by their healthcare provider. That could be earlier than the 10 days. I've heard instances where healthcare providers have released them earlier than the 10 days. So that's the only way that if a healthcare provider does put something in writing to us that they're okay to return. So that would be test positive asymptomatic. Then also number 4 just talks about, this is something that's been added, talking about that some children have been showing signs of rashes. So if they have a rash on their body surface, that needs to be reported immediately. That way the athletic trainer and or a physician can check them out before they return to an activity. 5 goes on and talks about each student athlete should bring their own water bottle and towel, clearly marked with their name for use. Bottles may be refilled at designated locations as assigned by their coach or athletic trainer. Number 6, coaches or designees will be responsible for sanitizing any and all equipment used during a given activity, especially equipment that's shared such as balls, handheld pads, etc. Number 7, coaches or designee will be responsible for cleaning any facility that requires it after it is used for an activity such as a weight room, wrestling mats, gym floors, etc. 8, all facility usage by individuals or teams, both indoor and outdoor, must be approved and scheduled in advance with school administration. All facility usage by outside individuals will not be allowed until further notice. So therefore, we've got all coaches going through our athletic directors or principals scheduling when we know people are in the building using them. That means the athletic director coaches will be turning in their practice schedules to athletic directors so that they know when that we have teams and stuff in the buildings. Okay. Outside of that, all outside facility usage right now we are putting on hold. We have notified those who have facility usage on files. We have notified them that that's on hold at this time. We're trying to limit any outside usage of people coming into the buildings. So those are kind of 8 kind of guidelines that we kind of put together, as well as the 9th one then, transportation to competitions. Parents will have the option to elect to use alternative transportation and will be responsible for getting them to and from activities. Student athletes, self-transportation is not an option. Transportation will be available to those who cannot be transported by their parents. Please note, transportation on bus will look similar to pre-COVID-19, except the following. Student athletes will be asked to sit with siblings if possible. Student athletes will be allowed to wear masks. And then we have a form will be required to designate transportation at the start of the season. If a change occurs, they must be submitted in writing, written notification to the coaches for this. So we're trying to allow that if a parent wanted more social distancing to transport their child to an event, we would allow them that flexibility to do it, but we did not want our high schoolers driving themselves to events. We were kind of nervous on that. So 10, also as coaches, student athletes are not to engage in any social activities before or after any practices, rehearsals, workouts, team activities, or competitions while on campus. These were kind of 10 guiding principles that I wanted to put together prior to getting into the IHSA list of kind of their phases. But I'll answer any questions that you have right now on these first 10 guidelines. Mr. Nago?
Parents have the option to elect alternative transportation and will be responsible for getting them to or from activities. So I can read that a couple of ways, they're responsible for getting to contest. Does that mean they're physically fit? They have someone else.
That's up to them. So if you want to work it out with another parent that you're friends with, we talked to Dell, we've had kind of conversations with our attorneys. Is that allowed? He felt like that would be an agreement between you and another parent, that if you were going to transport Johnny's friend or something, that's between you outside of the school doing that.
So my question is, parent, does it have to be a parent? Could it be, say you got a freshman who's 90 something, can it be the mother say, Johnny, you're a senior, take your brother?
No, that's what we're saying. Student athlete self-transportation is on, well, you're saying if they're not participating.
Yes.
So, like, say I have a daughter's gonna be a senior, and then we have one that's younger, and so she was gonna transport the younger daughter. That's a family decision in my mind. It's not, you just cannot transport yourself to that event. That's a family decision in my mind. But I guess I'll turn to our attorney to ask, or do you agree or disagree?
I agree, and please the board, that was our discussion, and that's included in not only the protocol, but you'll also see in the transportation waiver. So the basis for this is because this is a reopening under these pandemic guidelines, that a parent chose to waive school-based transportation for those reasons, for health and safety reasons, then they would also be agreeing to be solely responsible for the transportation in whatever form it would take. And then as Carl stated, he and the administrative team thought that, well, let's exclude self-transportation. So I think the end result, Mr. Kniga, would be that any transportation, so long as it's not a student driving themselves, would be permissible, and the parents would agree on the front end to be solely responsible for that transportation, for renting it, whatever form, to and from.
So you've got a student that's going to be transported.
Can you make sure, I don't know if they can hear, just make sure you get
So
close
you have a
enough.
student who's going to be transported by whatever means, whether it's a neighbor, Uber.
No, and you're right, and so I think the best way to look at it is it's the parent that's taking on that responsibility. So it's the parent that is the link between the school and the child. The parent is saying, I am going to fill out this form. And part of the form is also part of our logistics as well, so that sponsors and coaches know, okay, these are the kids that I'm responsible for to and from, these are the kids that have signed that election. And so it's really just the parent's responsibility. And again, you're correct, it could be in any form, it could be a tax cat, it could be whatever they think is best for their child. They're stepping in and saying, I'm going to make that decision, I elect under this waiver, and under the terms of this reopening plan to take that on, and it doesn't matter what form it's in.
So when does that kind of responsibility shift from school to the parent after school and after game?
It would be for any transportation at all related to the activity. So it would say that I as a parent now electing or asking the school to waive that responsibility for any transportation at all.
So I'm just asking, do we, for soccer or whatever, do everybody show up to get in the park with moms and dads, or does Joey or Susie leave school or they stay all good?
Well, it could be that Johnny or Susie goes home from school and then gets in the car with mom and goes from their home. Or if mom or dad picks them up from school, they go get something to eat and then they go to the activity. And what's going to happen is each coach at the beginning of their season, every parent's going to select what they're going to do, whether their kids can ride the bus or they are going to self-transport. That way every coach knows what to expect when their bus time's getting ready to leave. I know that these are the list of kids that should be here to ride the bus. These are the kids that the parents said are self-transporting. And then when they get to that activity, they'll get to that activity, and here's my full list, my full roster, and these are the kids that elected, are they here? So then they can double check that when they get to the event. That way, if they needed to make a call, just to follow up on that.
This just seems like it's a situation where one parent's going to take, someone's going to take, they leave you or somebody else.
Right, I understand.
Just
We were just trying to provide flexibility on transportation, given that there's some parents we believe that are gonna want to kind of social distance more.
And I'll also say that this was specifically recommended by the Department of Health, that we, just like Mr. Bailey said at the beginning, stating very clearly that the activities are voluntary. It's also been recommended to us by the Department of Health that we state that transportation plan, so that they be given that option. So it's not something that Mr. Bailey or you may have to look forward and, what they're suggesting to do.
And in July, there's gonna be a resolution I'll have to bring, because we have a number of policies that kind of go along with talking about, and guidelines, talking about transportation by the corporation. So during this situation of COVID-19, I'll have a resolution that you will temporarily suspend any policies, guidelines, or forms that directly interfere with our reentry plans. And this would be one, transportation would be one that would directly kind of contradict what our guidelines currently say.
Anything else, Mr. Canoe?
No, I agree, I had that written down here about transportation. Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson has a question.
So all these guidelines are posted, what are the consequences of the violation?
Meaning, like, such as what guidelines?
Like coaches, student athletes are not being in any social activity before or after, blah, blah, blah. What if, I'm just saying, what if, when the kids are down at the community center, I'm just saying, what are their consequences? Are they gonna go back to maybe the athletic code, or I just didn't know.
No, we don't have anything that's gonna be a punishment or consequence for it. We're just trying to state, these are the best practices that we strongly recommend following these.
I think there are consequences for, sit out the next game, or if you broke the rule, or I didn't know.
No, nothing at this time.
Basically, so, coaches and athletes, don't do anything for that state, basically, to the school, or the practices.
Right, I mean, they come to school, they have their practices, and engage in their practices, and then go from there, but what we're saying is like, you're not gonna go and have, like you would have if you had a get-together or something before or after, like during the week or something, a pep rally on a Thursday night or something. It's trying to reduce some of those areas is what it's trying to do. Right.
Just more family time work.
Other questions on
Any other
these 10 guidelines?
Bob, you okay?
I'm good, I understand.
Okay, so make sure you're good.
I'm good.
Then as we move on to the next page, then it moves on to the phases. These phases are, I would say, 99% directly taken from the in-class document that the IPOE and IHSA has released for us. So you can see phase 1, July 6th through July 19th. So you can see that 2-week period where it talks about limiting the number of hours the student athletes are being on campus. It talks about the different activities that they have, the Sunday rules still being in place. It talks about activities versus conditioning. It continues going on. Guidance, any student who prefers to wear a face covering for activities should be allowed. If doing so will not cause health risks. So it gives them some guidance all the way down through here. The bold part you can see right there, only essential student athletes, student participants, coaches, medical staff, related supervisors, directors, and security should be in attendance, because this is still just for practices. There's no events during this time. So what it's basically saying is, unfortunately, parents, these are closed practices. Parents cannot be there, trying to limit the number of people in and out of our activities. It does also continue on down through there, that you can kind of see at the very bottom of that page. All students and staff should be trained and screened for signs, symptoms of COVID-19 prior to participating in workouts, rehearsals, practices. The city has a number of documents that have postings and signage. They're going to share that so that we can print off that signage and post it around the buildings as well for that. Also, Dr. Edelson is going to put together, it won't be before July 6th, but by the end of phase 1, Dr. Edelson is putting together a video. I've asked if he would record a video kind of talking a little about signs, symptoms, almost like a little training video that we can share out with everyone. And he's going to be kind of recording that and putting that together for us. That way there's consistency in the message that's going out from the county and from the schools being shared throughout there. You can kind of, as we go on to the next page, talks about hand washing, and then you can see the next bullet part underlined, locker rooms should not be utilized. So you can see in phase 1, sorry, thank you for telling me that. Phase 1, so you can see the second bullet point right there, locker rooms should not be utilized. Students should report to their activity and proper gear immediately return home to shower at conclusion. Restrooms should remain available for student athletes and athletic staff. However, social distancing is encouraged. So in phase 1, athletic locker rooms would not be used in this. So they'll come to their activity and leave from their activity. They would not have that. Gathering size, you can see that they do encourage decreasing as much as possible. Talks about the goal of social distancing as it has there. Talks about scheduling adjustments to reduce the number of events, duration, participants practicing, cleaning. And this we added in talking about our points that the coaches are responsible for cleaning after activities and cleaning their equipment. Those are the 2 sub-bullet points that came from our guidelines that we had in the 1 through 10. School activities using off-site, non-school-owned facilities, equipment for related activities should work with our off-site facility providers to ensure associated relative safety means are in place. We don't necessarily, I don't believe we have any of those that we're using off-site kind of venues for this. Appropriate clothing and shoes should be worn at all times. No sharing of clothing, shoes, towels, or water bottles. Hand sanitizer should be plentiful and available at all times. If equipment must be shared, our spouse should be clean immediately following usage. Equipment such as weight benches should be exposed to be covered or discarded if they have holes in them. Students must be expected to shower at home and wash workout clothing immediately upon returning to their home. They do not have. If a student does not have a laundered uniform, he or she may not be allowed to participate in practice or competitions, so just ask them to keep everything clean. If the school launders student gears, PPE must be available to those that are in charge of laundering. You can see, and this is also workout. Free weight exercise requiring a spotter cannot be conducted at this time. Safety measures in all forms must be strictly enforced in the weight room. So you can see they can't have a free weight spotter. But I didn't talk, I know a couple of our coaches shared with me, they can still do some of that because we have squat racks that they use the racks within the racks. And they put safety bars, so they still can do that without the spotters inside the racks. So there are some free weights that they can still do without a direct spotter over top of them.
I mean, I know you're going on, but just real quick, on all this here, I guess my biggest, these are recommendations, correct?
They are.
They are recommendations. My biggest problem with that, so, where's that? Okay, so it's 15 hours per week, then does that include like workouts, along with practices?
No, they're going to go through it, and Mr. Pearson is going to explain that to the coaches. Conditioning and practices are 2 different things.
Okay, because it just says here per week on campus, so
Right.
that's why I asked.
Right, he's going to explain the difference between conditioning and practices to the coaches so that they understand that. Okay,
Usually about 3 hours, or usually being
I think it varies depending upon
right.
the group.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's my biggest thing. Thanks.
No formal competition is allowed. For contact sports, no contact is allowed. So this is in phase 1. So no contact, no formal competition, pool usage is acceptable. So that's phase 1. Then we move into phase 2. July 20th is when phase 2 starts. This goes through August 14th. So all the guidelines from phase 1 are in place with these adaptations. Student contact hours will not be applicable outside of the Sunday rule. So that 15-hour rule minimum or maximum doesn't apply now. And part of the reason is because now your fall sports are in season. So now that they're in season, those hours don't necessarily apply to your fall sports, okay? And Mr. Pierce will explain that to the coaches because it does apply still to those that are not in season. So if they're not a fall sport, then there are certain restrictions they have. If locker rooms or meeting rooms are used, 50% capacity is recommended. Contact is allowed by the IHSAA. Free weight exercise requiring a spotter can be conducted. Celebratory and sportsmanship acts that involve contact should be prohibited. No formal competition is allowed with the exception of girls' golf. Just read directly from the IHSA guidelines and recommendations. So the thing that can come in phase 2 is girls' golf competition. Everything else is still on hold competition-wise, okay? Then we get to phase 3, which is August 15th. August 15th, phase 1, phase 2 are still in practice. And here's the changes then in phase 3. If locker rooms or meeting rooms are used, 50% capacity is recommended. If the restriction of 50% capacity at competitive events creates a hardship, the impacts the hygiene, safety, and standards of 50% or greater capacity is allowed. So you could go greater if you have a hardship, you can't make it work. The goal of social distancing is defined by the CDC. If it's not possible to follow these guidelines indoor and outdoor, then create as much distance as possible. It's recommended that participants and coaches wear face coverings when distancing is limited. The individual is not participating in rigorous activity. Officials should be given the option to wear face coverings. For sidelines, benches, and other holding areas, consider establishing a protocol as a guide for student coaches for distancing. Hospitality rooms for officials should not include shared food service, should allow space for social distancing. Individual waters, prepackaged snacks may be made available. Cleaning regarding team or group transportation must be followed. Contact should be limited to only contact necessary to compete as defined by the IHSA. Modified sportsmanship practices should be observed. Competition may begin. So as of August 15th is when then all sports can start competitions. Spectator, media, and vendors can be present but should implement social distancing and follow established mass gathering guidelines. Last one, concessions may be sold if food handlers and cashiers use appropriate PPE and only prepared prepackaged foods available. So for your concessions, you're looking at, you can have water, you can have drinks, you can have like your candy bars and things that are prepackaged. If you want to do pretzels that are prepackaged, you can do that. But really, you can't do your popcorns, you can't do open hot dogs, you can't do those things that are prepared and assembled together. So it all has to be prepackaged. Excuse me? Unless they were prepackaged.
What do you say about cookies?
Cookie, he asked about cookies. Could Otis Milk Bar cookies not if they're not prepackaged?
So, I guess, now, you're saying you guys can clean that, so we have things in place to make sure we have all the right cleaning products and, you know, 'cause I don't know what you're gonna clean all the balls and the weight room stuff with, and
Good question. So our PPE that we have already started purchasing a number of that. So for example, we have started purchasing hand sanitation wipes. So we have containers that will hold 300 wipes. Those we have in place. We bought 250 canisters of them. And we already have refills for 3 times went into them. So we thought they might last in like a classroom for a month. In a gym, probably shorter, but we have multiple refills. What happens is you have a canister that you put this dry wool into that has 300 wipes in it. You dump in up to a gallon of this solution that soaks it, and then it's a Clorox-based solution that soaks it, and then you pull the wipes out. 300 wipes, we have refills that be able to put and do that. So we've already got that on hand to be able to start delivering to our gymnasiums, to our weight rooms, to those areas that are going to be used right away starting in July. We're in the process then of purchasing our hand sanitizer as well. We are putting hand sanitizer pumps then at all our doorways, entryways, gymnasiums, will be in our classrooms, that will be doing that as well. So we're in the process of getting that as well. We've got other PPE equipment that we will have. Some of that includes, from our other one, I want to pull out so I won't lose. Shields and masks today We received 2,500 shields for free from Super ATV in Madison. They donated to all schools, whatever shields that they want. So we purchased a shield for every student and 2 for every staff member. That they will be given a shield, the face covering shield, mask. The state is going to provide us masks as well for students. So we should have masks available to provide them. Families are welcome to provide them too, but we will provide those. I talked about the sanitizing wipes, hand sanitizer. We also have on order, they're called Clorox T360 spraying machines, and they will be placed one at every building, a second one at the high school since they have the large athletic locker rooms, that these will be able to go in at night. These are more for deep cleaning. So if we need to do a deep clean, like I say, there's a positive case, and we need to close that room and go in that night and do a deep cleaning, we would use these Clorox T360 spraying machines to go in and do a deep cleaning in those rooms. Those are on order. I don't know when we'll get those. They've been on order, I think, 2 weeks. They're talking about like a 12-week turnaround right now. So, I know they're a sprayer. I don't know if they're a fogger. I know Mr. Ferguson went to a training to be able to see them demoed and came back and recommended those. Also, we're in the process of getting with Mr. Milan, that he has another product that they use in the car dealerships called the Common Sense Micro Solutions. And that's kind of like a fogger that they put in the cars that puts out this molecule that's a surface that's kind of almost like a nice layer. You might be able to kind of talk about it a little bit more. That has this molecular molecule on it, fights against things like funguses, molds, viruses, those, that puts that layer on it. They say in the cars, they recommend it, it's good for a year. In our buses, they're talking about our buses that we would put 4 of them in one of our large buses, 2 of them in our mini buses, and we would do that every 9 weeks. So at our breaks, our fall break, we would do it again. Christmas break, we would do it again. Spring break, that we would do this to our buses. That doesn't mean that we're still not going to wipe down our buses and still use the Clorox T360s, but this is just another layer of protection that we're trying to utilize and provide. So those are some of the PPE that we are in the process of getting and utilizing.
Hand sanitizers, I'd say we order those as soon as possible. I know that people will place them, order them, and then 2 to 3+ weeks back up for the, you get the sanitizer, but not the stands. Right. The whole.
We're in the process this week that Mr. Ferguson was out staying on vacation, and I told him last Friday when we talked, and he come back and say that's our project.
Maybe there's a company out there that donates stuff like this in the school, but I don't know, like Pharrell or something, what they're hand sanitizer. I don't know.
Right. Yep. I'll check on things. Like I said, we're working on that. We do know there's a vendor out of Indianapolis that, I mean, they sell it by the 55-gallon drum. So we're even looking at purchasing it by the 55-gallon drums. You have basically a spigot out of it that you come and you refill out of the 55-gallon drum. So we're looking at even the volumes like that. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Going on then, you can see that our next page that we have is the extracurricular and co-curricular participation waiver. This was drafted and put together by our attorneys. So you can see this form, which is just a general waiver, which is waiving risk from the school corporation. Then it goes on. So basically, you can see kind of the waiver there. By signing this document, I acknowledge the contagious nature of COVID-19 and voluntarily assume the risk that my child may be exposed to or infected by COVID-19 while participating in LCSC activities, and that such exposure or infection may result in personal, and it kind of goes through. So they're understanding and assuming the risk from that. If their child participates, the next page goes through, and it's a parent-guardian self-monitoring safety agreement. So we are asking for parents, before they send their child to a practice event activity, that they are going to self-monitor and check off. We are not going to take temperatures every day of our student athletes. We are not going to check them all the time. We are asking for the parents, and this is where they are going to sign off. Down at the bottom, you can see a student parent, where they agree to monitor their child for symptoms as established below, in that they agree to report it to the LCSC immediately if they've been in contact with someone who has tested positive, and they will not allow their child to return to LCSC property or participate in LCSC activities until, number one, they've not had a fever for at least 72 hours, that's without medications, and other symptoms have improved, and at least 10 calendar days have passed since the symptoms first appeared, or number two, have obtained a negative COVID-19 test from a licensed medical provider. So this will be a waiver, and you can see that we have listed kind of the symptoms listed there that they would sign off.
And if they don't sign it,
They would not be able to participate in our activities.
so that has to be made
Right.
aware of.
It's going to be put into final forms. Mr. Pearson is putting it into final forms where all parents will have to then sign off on that in final forms.
Thank you.
Then it moves on to the next document, is the transportation waiver. So this is a waiver that basically the parents are signing, saying that if they voluntarily agree that they will assume the foregoing risk and accept sole responsibility for the transportation of their child. Then the last one is the health history update questionnaire consent release certificate from the IHSA. So this is directly from the IHSA. I just copied it and put it in there, that these are questions that parents will have to sign off and talk about on this. So these are our documents that we are looking at for the athletic participation guidelines for re-entry this year, which, as I said, phase one would begin July 6th. So that's why, if approved tonight, then Mr. Pearson will get this loaded into final forms, push it out to the parents, that they get signed off on all this before they start any activities July 6th. So it gives us a few weeks, gives him a few weeks to get all that stuff prepared and ready to go. Questions for me on this return document?
If you have any questions? Thank you, guys. Thanks, Mr. Thanks, Mr. Pearson. I know you guys worked hard. Del and Zach, thank you guys. Looks like you guys done a lot of work. Get this taken care of. It's gonna be fun.
Just to provide an update, we have had a committee, I want to thank Bela has been participating also on our committees in providing input as well. We are working right now on a return to school in the fall document. So we kind of have one drafted right now. I have asked our principals to start working with their building leadership teams, their grade level and department chairs, to give input and feedback on it. So they are doing that this week and next week. And I believe it's the first, which is, I want to say like next Wednesday or Thursday, or we are going to meet again and talk about those documents. So we're hoping by the beginning of July to have those finalized, that then we can try to release out to the public after you guys have a chance to review that and approve it, just like this document here. So our goal is by the July board meeting, that's ready to be able to present to you guys for approval and to be able to give to our families. If this athletic one is approved tonight, the goal is tomorrow that I will record a video kind of going through that, just in brief, not everything like I did tonight, briefly touching on it, and then also sharing with them that we anticipate to return, our fall return plan anticipates to follow the school calendar, return August 5th, as the school calendar says. Also, we look to provide opportunities of virtual and in-person to families. We will be sending out a survey with this tomorrow as well, just getting some preliminary data. It's not set in stone for families to let us know, if you had to pick right now, would you pick virtual or in-person? That way we can start looking at what those numbers would be and start planning accordingly with that. Then we would send out, after our final plan's approved, we would send out another survey getting exactly who would be going virtual and who would be here in person, so we have those numbers. So that's information that we'll be sending out tomorrow, hopefully, if this gets approved tonight.
Anybody else? All right, all those in favor to approve the athletic participation guidelines for the 2020-21 season, raise your hand. 7-0.
They should be able to see, they see everything, so it's 7-0. I could look at note, see if there's any chats. So I can share, like right now, I know one said it was hard to hear it may be a little bit hard for them to hear. I can try to increase that for our next time. And then also, I know there's one comment says, isn't the second wave issue bothering anyone else than me? I mean, yes, there are concerns about that. Obviously, all of our documents are fluid documents. So these documents, as we continue to work with Dr. Elison, our county health professional, we will partner with him, and if there's guidance that we need to tighten things for, then we will do so. So we will follow his guidance that he gives us for the schools as well.
Any other comments, Randy?
Those are the only three that I see.
All right, so when we talk, let's try to talk into the microphone a little bit better so they can hear us. Get more seconds. All right, next, discussion update on the LCSC renovation, project. Mr. Gillen?
Yes, wanted to kind of move along. We are in the schematic phase, design phase of the project. We started receiving schematic design budget estimates. Wanted to kind of just share some of those numbers with you. Of our 4 buildings, 3 of our 4 buildings seem to be within budget. We should be able to make work. Unfortunately, the high school right now, once we've had the professionals, our mechanical, electrical, and plumbing professionals get into the building and really kind of look at our boilers, look at all of our structural issues and things that they have said, you know what, there's a lot of things that they would recommend replacing at this time. If those are things that we are going to look to replace, then we would need to increase our budget probably by, I believe it would be probably $4 million to $5 million is what we're probably looking to increase our budget by. Based upon, and I know the question could be, didn't we kind of do a study, look at some of these things? It was more of a surface study. It wasn't kind of an in-depth study. Some of the things weren't going into some of those areas and looking at some of those. I have had a conversation with our architect, Terry Lancer, about that, kind of expressed some displeasure that some of the things I thought should have been caught and should have been included in there. We have had that conversation with that. Our kind of options that we have at this point, we kind of have 2 options. Option number 1 is that we could stay within the $11.5 million budget, and we would need to then scale back things significantly at the high school and have to put them off for another, say, I don't know, 3 to 5 years, or we have 2 additional hearings to look to increase our budget for the high school and be able to increase our budget and be able to do those within the project scope now. My recommendation would be for us to have 2 additional hearings and look to do that at our July 13th board meeting, would be the first public hearing, and then we can set one up anytime during that week. So we could look at our schedules tonight, and we could set that second hearing date tonight and say the first one will be July 13th, the second one, it could be anytime, it could be that Tuesday the 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, it could be anytime during that week if we want work to be the following week, if you really want to go that long. But we can put them back to back. Then the 30-day clock would start to see if there would be any petitions against it.
Mr. Daniel?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, this is just, some of these things on here. For instance, the wood. That's just, I think, wood was about 30 years. I've never seen some of these things being not transparent, such as extended fire suppression line using upgraded corridors, the boiler, that should be, and I know we probably had some conversation. It just seems every time you get involved in one of these things, it just never, it's anxious. We went, we asked them for $22 million. Now we're going back to this one. I'm not saying that they don't need done, but we give people good money, give us good advice, doesn't seem to be getting more than $1.4 million on wood. That's, I'm not saying that's a good price or not, it's a lot of money.
And some of those numbers are going to be hopefully conservative numbers because it's only schematic design budgets now. So I'd rather us be conservative now than, I understand, I've had that conversation.
We got a budgetary price of almost $250,000 here, upgrade and the elevators just didn't here, they're been here for 40 years. I mean, that's my opinion. The other schools, it's a little bit less, if it's 1.3 million, gee, that's, it's 650, 850 CS, LPS. Stuff is, it's just frustrating.
Understand, I've had that individual conversation, he understands, because I've asked him that he needs to come here and have that conversation with the board too, so.
That's how the rest of the board feels, but that's just. Well, that's how I feel, because I know he sat right there and he said, these are good numbers. You know, and he more or less, hey, these are good, this is good. Now you're coming back, we gotta throw another 5 million at it, 4 million. Fine. I mean, I think we should do it, I mean, but, you know, that's his job, that's what we paid him for. And for him to sit there and tell us they're good numbers, now they come back and say they're not. Either he don't know his job, or, you know, maybe he should eat half of it. What upsets me, Brian, is like I say, I'm not saying these things don't need done, but the boiler was there, the boiler, that's a third. That was part of the project, is upgrading the HVAC, which is clearly written.
Right, well, that's shoot the messenger, he'll be here in July, he will be here to answer those in July, is that, and that's what I said, why, we're looking at this, and he said, well, I've got HVAC, but we didn't look in depth at the MEP, and I go, why would we not be including even the MEP and everything, such as the boiler and all that, within this study?
Why is he not here tonight?
There's nothing to do about it tonight.
Because I felt like in July, when we have the hearing, that's when if we're gonna have a hearing, that's when they'll be here, because I wanted also Baker Tilly here to go through the numbers again, and be able to show all of that at the same time.
It's just disappointing to me, so.
Well, Carl, Mr. Gillen, yeah.
No, I understand. Like I said, I've had that conversation and said, you're gonna have to come here, you're gonna have to explain to the board why.
I mean, for instance, on top of the primary school budgetary cost, you're literally remove the entire purple model to configuration, to new configuration.
And that's really, it's, the wording on that is just adding, it's looking at just adding the additional parking on the back side of where it comes up by the bus lanes. Right, so it's, that wording there is a little misleading, it's not ripping out everything and reconfiguring all that.
$217,000.
Right,
I'm sorry, I said.
Well, Mr. Lanford gets here, bring up those points to him. We'll talk to him. Or Mr. Stevie, whoever knows. But, you know, Mr. Gillen, I had a conversation when he first brought it up, and, he's just as upset as we are,
Who is it?
Mr. Gillen.
I made the call as soon as I got these numbers, I made the calls directly, once I talked to Maxwell first, and then turned around and contacted, financial people, and then contacted Terry, and I'm like, Terry, how is this so far off? So,
Question. So prior to, and like I said, remind me, I can't remember, but Maxwell looked at these numbers before they got into this contract with us as well, right? I mean, didn't Maxwell kind of review Terry's numbers and thought that was good, or am I just making that up?
I don't think they didn't really go in and look at, no, they didn't do a study or follow up on his study to look at everything, because they weren't in the process to know exactly what we wanted. So they jumped in and sat down while we were going through the schematic design and hearing that, and then as they were jotting down everything, that's when they started talking.
Got into it and started going through it, and I said,
Right, and then some things were added, but I wouldn't say $5 million worth of additions, because there's things that I think I would like to see at the high school, such as on our doors, having more electronic doors versus having to use as many keys. That's not gonna be now a $500,000 type ticket, but there's a few things I have added and asked that I think we need to do, but not $5 million worth of things.
well, as much time as they spend here, water analysis, essentially.
Right, the original part. My recommendation, like I said, my recommendation would be that we try to get it all done, because we want to get it done now so the high school is up to where it needs to be. And my recommendation would be that we hold a hearing, our first hearing July 13th, and then we look at our calendars at when could we have that second hearing. I can send an email out first thing in the morning and try to see when people are available that week to try and set them a second hearing date.
We need to put that in a motion and vote on it then for
I-
sure.
I think it would be best, that way, if the board supports that, I think it would be best.
One question, we're gonna have a different meeting for Mr. Lancer, or is it gonna be?
On that night, I mean, are you okay with on that night, or would you rather have, except he could come on the second hearing night, where that's the only thing that's on the agenda if you want. Because July 13th is our regular July board meeting,
I think it's best for second night, in my opinion, because I think it might get a little,
that's the only thing that'll be on the agenda, so.
might be, might take a little time.
Sure, I can make sure he's here on that second one, once we said it.
Great. All right, so I need a motion to, put on the July 13th.
That's July 13th.
July 13th, board meeting to discuss an update.
To reopen and have a hearing on the high school building project.
What Carl said. Can I have a motion, please? Mr. Miller. Can I have a second, please? Mr. Kaniga? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. 7-0. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Gillett. And again, I was trying to shoot the best.
I understand, I'm just upset, so.
All right, next, discussion of construction management contract.
We just, I have Mr. Well here, there were a couple things within the contract, construction management contract with Maxwell. We just want to clarify, make sure if the board is in agreement to add them into the contract. So I want to have that discussion since we were having that meeting. I believe the two main things that we were looking at, the first one is the board open to having the profit sharing clause put in there, where it would be a 75-25 split on that profit sharing up to, I believe you were looking at, Mr. Well, $150,000 max is the max. And then number two would be adding liquidated damages into there as well at $1,000 a day was what we've done. But wanted to kind of have some discussion. I know Mr. Wells has been kind of having those discussions with Maxwell, also with Flagger, Dranker, that they've been kind of reviewing the contract and they've been giving some input and advice to Dell as well. So I don't know if Dell, if you want to kind of expand a little bit more on that.
Yeah, and I'll make it brief as I can. So right now there are two contracts, and really three, that we have to execute for this project. One is the B-133, which has already been approved and executed. That's the contract between you and Lansing and Dewey. The next set of contracts that need to be approved is the A-133. That's our contract with Maxwell Construction. And then what's called an A-201, which is the general terms and contract that's really kind of the same thing. So it's our contract with Maxwell. The key terms for tonight that I'd like the board's guidance in would be one, as Mr. Daly stated, whether or not we want to share the savings clause. And we went back and forth a little bit on this. Terry Lancer was kind of not a fan of this in general based on the CMC structure. But when we talked to Favorite Drinker a little bit more about their experience with construction projects and talked to Maxwell, everyone seems to think that this is a good idea if we structure it in the way that Mr. Gailey set out. So we don't want to incentivize, big things that cost more, and then, oh wait, it didn't cost as much as we thought, so now we get a cut of that savings. We want to, again, by choosing CMC, we want the best, tightest numbers we can get. But if there does happen to be an opportunity to make a savings without sacrificing quality, then we want to incentivize that. So the kind of middle ground that we came to between Terry Lynch just kind of being generally objecting to those, and then Maxwell and Favorite Drinkers, construction lawyers, saying it can be a good thing, was a 75-25 split, capped at 150, and any self-performed work or allowances would not be subject to the shared savings. So they couldn't do, there's a provision in the contract that allows them to do a certain percentage of work themselves. That wouldn't be eligible, it's just work that the sub are doing. If there is a savings, then it'd be a 75-25 split. Again, we vetted this through Favorite Drinker as the board directives to their construction experts. And, we think it's a good idea, they think it's a good idea, Maxwell's in agreement, and that would be added into the contract. You'll see the contract being approved, the final version, but it's gonna be in section 6.2.1, where you'll see that reflected in the A133 document. Bill? Yes, sir.
On that, so if you want, is that for the whole project, the whole school project, or is that per building project?
That's for the entirety of the project.
So the whole project, the max is 150, correct?
Yes.
It's 75 for us, 25 for them,
Yes.
correct? I think that's what make sure it's the whole project, not just per building. Mr. Connect?
Gambling, well, we can possibly make damages as well.
Yes.
So, here's one question.
You want the first explanation before we get into that? Because there's been a recommendation of differences too, so go ahead.
Yeah, we again, talked to Baby Drinker and met with Maxwell, and they will agree, if we will agree to $1,000 a day of the damages. They don't believe that that's a number that would jeopardize any subs, that would scare off any subs. Basically, the discussion was, well, we need a number that will protect the school corporation and not be so high that certain subcontractors wouldn't bid at all. And so Maxwell will agree to $1,000 a day if that is the desire of the board, and all parties are in agreement that these are fully enforceable, that this is pre-negotiated and will apply and be charged if there is a.
And I believe within your discussion too, that there was recommendations potentially higher than they've seen contracts where it's been higher than $1,000 a day. But if it went higher, then potentially Maxwell would have to look at then their fee structure and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So then, my question is if we do this cost sharing and liquidate damages, are the parties willing to forego any legal rights and risk of damage?
The completion date. So the completion date would be separate completely from the shared savings, but, that's exactly, I think what you're saying is, we agree that we're not going to, litigate or,
No,
have
that's,
a lawsuit.
they're not, if they miss the day, completion date, that we're not going to be in a legal battle, because the situation we just,
Yes,
said
sir.
is what we're on, or you're on, liquidated damages. So if they would waive their right to, procure their money for litigation, in time, say, that's a good situation.
Really agree.
Oh, it's-
Okay, no, would you turn that way to him, and the mic's on this side, it's gonna hard to hear you, sorry.
Felt like it was a good situation given the parameters that.
Yeah, if the parameters are, because we just get out of
Right.
one situation.
It's gonna hold water.
Yeah,
Yeah.
If the completion date's December 1st, it's October the next year, they're done, there's 12 days. I don't want them coming back and saying, well, this didn't happen, this didn't happen. I want it to be drawn out. You miss your date, you're gonna have money, you gotta go right. Legally.
Exactly, and believe me, that's the discussion that we had with them. Look, you guys have to know that this board and this school corporation just got out of a situation where they were treating us fairly. We understand before we start this project, that if you're late, we're going to charge you $1,000 a day with no objection, no negotiation, and no litigation. And they agreed to that, we agreed to that, I think, in terms of learning from bad things happening to us and this project, being a new opportunity, this does protect us going into the front end where there can be no argument on the back end if they're late, they owe us something.
It's counted.
It's contradictory.
I'm confident they'll get done. It's just.
Yeah, we've had bad experiences before, we've been used to having a lot of stuff, so, it is, and as far as.
Don't agree with that?
Yeah, that's what they are, and they also, it was also important to us that everyone understands going in, that they need to speak to the things that are important to you as a board, and that was a big one, because we just got, not one bad situation, but two. So those two, examples of litigation, we should work to avoid, anything
And I know one of the things that they were concerned about was making sure there was availability, like for myself, like they needed a decision made. They didn't want to be hung up, having to wait on a decision. And I said, well, once a budget's approved, once those things, I said, outside of large change orders, I said, I have that latitude. Yes, they'll have my availability that if I need to make a decision for them, I was able to do that for the gym project and we're able to keep the things moving. So they understood that and I had that conversation with them.
Yeah, and I'll just go down the list here of those other issues and we can go back to any of them. So, the first one, we'll start with exactly what Mr. Bailey said. One of the things that was important to them along the lines of the damages and substantial completion timeline is making sure that you have someone, that we have someone on site that's available and has the authority to make decisions, where there would be a delay caused by, you didn't give Carl the authority, we had to have a meeting, and then they're late because of that. Obviously, that would be kind of against them, like Mr. Bailey said, we worked through that. The first thing that they wanted, it's kind of a big one, so, the timing for the GMP, they were concerned that the contract as it's written, again, AIA documents are boilerplate, generic documents, say it's language that applies to everyone, they can then adjust. As it's generically written, it says the owner just sets the time that the GMP is due. So the way it was written, LCSC could say, Maxwell, hey, we need your GMP next week. And that's what it looked like to them, that's kind of what it said on its face. Of course, that is not the situation that we're in. The GMP would be, the due date for the GMP would be a time mutually agreed by the parties, a reasonable time, and it would fall after the first round or what's called tier 1 bids are obtained. And the reason for that again is just the general motivation behind the CMC versus design bill, which is we want to have really great, strong, reliable numbers before we set that GMP so that we know, hey, this number is good throughout the duration of the project. So they just asked, and that was really important to them that we change that language to say, hey, when we ask them to give us a GMP, it'll be at times reasonably, mutually agreed, and after those tier 1 bids. So that seemed to be okay with everyone. I just want to make sure it's okay with you. Second one, and that's going to be contained just for your reference, 3.2.1, the A133. In 3.2.4, the A133 contingency. So our contingency, just generally, contingency percentage, allowances, alternates, and lump sum. These are all parts of the contract that can be much or as little as Maxwell wants it to be. For example, you have very large, you have 10% contingency, or what we would want to be a 2 or 3% contingency. For allowances, you probably want no allowances. And so if they came to us with the GMP, their question was, are you going to dictate what our contingency percent should be? Are you going to dictate what our allowances should be? And our position was, no, that's going to be part of the GMP. So if you get a GMP that's a number that maybe you're comfortable with, but the contingency percentage is higher than you're comfortable with, you're free to reject that. Same with allowances, same with any of these individual parts. So that'll all, and same with start and substantial completion date. So when you get that GMP, you're ready to approve it, all of those things are going to be part of it. And all of those things will be then subject to your rejection or acceptance and then renegotiation if you feel like that's appropriate. So we didn't think it was important to say, okay, in the contract, we're going to limit your contingency to 5% or 6%. They can put in whatever they want. And if you guys feel like it's too high, go reject it. And they'll come back to the drawing board. And then specifically with contingency, whatever that percentage is, we did feel it was appropriate to agree to a threshold so that they're not getting our permission or needing to get our permission for every instance of contingency. Contingency, again, doesn't change your GMP, doesn't change the overall price, but it's this pool of money that's kind of generic that when you need it, you can assign it in the ledger. It's an accounting function from the contingency to a specific line item. And if you had to do that for every $100, $500 item, that would be that would actually harm the project. So what we think is best to agree to, and again, relying on Faith and Drinker and their input, would be a $10,000 threshold. That's what Maxwell would agree to. We would agree to that. That way, anything under $10,000, they can do it without a permission. Anything over $10,000, they need permission. They can do it from that contingency generic to a specific line. 6 is background checks. And we talked about, the way the AIA contract is written is that background checks are conducted, as the construction manager would normally perform them. So Maxwell would just do background checks the way that they would normally do. However, with the caveat, because this is a municipal school project, that, similar to the South Dearborn project, if someone needed, for whatever reason, and we don't anticipate talking to Mr. Daly, don't anticipate any of the workers being in contact with any students at all ever, but if they needed to, they would then come to the school corporation and get badged, just like any other business. So that's what South Dearborn did, and that's New Carl, I called them, just found that out.
We did that similar with the gym project.
There you
They
go.
have that.
So if you're okay with that, we'll make it just the same one.
And basically what would happen with the gym project, our construction manager, so at that time it was Bruns Gutzweiler, and this place was Maxwell, we gave them our office, Shannon made like about a dozen visitor badges, gave them to Bruns Gutzweiler, and if they had a sub that needed, they would then act. Knowing if they had a background check, they would then issue them a visitor badge, and they would know who was there.
And that way, if any one of the concerns was it comes up as a lump sum administrative cost. So if they're handling everything but that situation, they're gonna pay for it. If you need somebody back, obviously we do that, at our cost using our infrastructure. So that resolves also the way to pay for it. The other provision, which is 12.2, is for dispute resolution. We crafted our dispute resolution process again to reflect the last two instances of litigation that we experienced, where we had an instance of litigation that really was predicated most heavily on the fact that the amount in dispute and controversy was low enough that the legal fees are actually going to be more than the money we're fighting for, which caused leverage that was really unfair to us. And so we structured a dispute resolution procedure to have caps, and the caps are $100,000. Anything under $100,000 is. No, I know that, but for what are the cap levels for arbitration proceedings? So for anything under $250,000 in controversy, we would do arbitrations, a binding dispute resolution process, where we go to an arbitrator. And the reason for that is, and this has never really been done before, AIA contracts either take mediation or arbitration or litigation. They don't have a hybrid, but we thought, well, if it's a dispute with $250,000 or less in controversy, then the most efficient use of the school corporation's resources and the best way to get a quick resolution would be to use arbitration. Go in, it's a one-time event, that result is binding, there's no further appeal or litigation after that, and so that would prevent what we just saw in American Roofing and Construction Management, where the amounts look so low, but we're reinforcing the expensive litigation unfairly. Then if it's over $250,000, then it's subject to mediation and litigation in court, and unlike American Roofing, in that contract, we specifically select our venue. Our venue has to be Dearborn County, local court, not federal court, or court somewhere wherever you want to. So we just kind of put, okay, what happened to RQAW, what happened to American Roofing? Let's put that together and create a dispute resolution contract clause that really speaks to LCSC and what's best for us. Maxwell wanted to cap the amount of training disputes, because we put in our dispute resolution paragraph that whoever wins, the other side pays their fees. They were okay with that, but they wanted to cap it. And to arrive at a number for the cap, we asked him together to get us the total attorney's fees from the RQAW case, which were $97,000. We suggest having the attorney's fees cap of $100,000 based on the RQAW case. So all of those things together will be our dispute resolution clause. Again, Mark, that's what you're saying. Okay, do I? And no, it doesn't happen, but now we're protected. We learn from our mistakes, and if anything bad does happen, which we don't anticipate, we're planning for the worst and hope for the best. And Mr. Milano, I must make it short. Roll the dog when I said that. 13.2.3, this is called termination before convenience. So this is a clause that is really not applicable for a municipal project, but it can be. This is mostly for private projects when the owner says, you know what, we're out of money, we want backtrack, whatever, we're stopping the project, even though it's not done. What happens with that, kind of fork in the road, does Max will get all their fees, even though the project's not done, you know, is it based on a percentage? What, the advice that we got and what Max will agree with, if you'll agree would be, wherever we stop, whatever the balance of their fee, they get half of that. Again, that's very, very, but it is part of the contract. So they get one half of whatever remaining fee is. If we, for whatever reason, have to stop the project, again, that's called termination for convenience. Then the 11.4.5 is the claim waivers. So whenever they turn in their claim waivers, those are accompanied by a lien release in a private project. The good thing about a municipality is we're not subject to mechanical claims. People can't apply those to us the way they would in a private project. So in a private project, every time you get a claim, you would ask for a waiver release from that sub. So they would say, I've been paid, I'm not gonna file a mechanics lien on your property later. Again, we're immune from that. However, and so we thought, well, do we need to do that at all? The advice that we were given is, yeah, you should probably do that anyway, because it protects the subs. That way, it's protection, it's a reputational protection. That is a school corporation, we're saying, okay, we're taking a step to make sure all the subs are getting paid, even though we're not subject to mechanics lien, so they don't have to waive that lien. And then to make it easier for Maxwell to reduce administrative costs, we would advise setting the threshold amount for that at $15,000. So anything above $15,000, they need to show us, yeah, we paid the sub. Anything below $15,000, what they're going to do is a combination of having an open book policy, you can look at the books whenever you like, and they're going to tender to us just what's called blanket waiver, or blanket release, because we're in there. Then the very last thing is in the appendix A. So A 4.2.6. This is a provision that allows work to be rejected, non-conforming work. They usually what it says is the owner and any of the owner's agents can reject the work. You go by, you see a door, you're like, hey, that door is supposed to be 3 feet to the right or to the left. So non-conforming work is pretty simple, right? You got drawings, the work doesn't match up to it, you can reject that work. The problem that Maxwell anticipated that they brought up would be, okay, as a school corporation, you have lots of agents. You have an entire board, you have a lot of people, kind of what Carl was saying before, availability, authority, who are reporting to here. What they would like to see and what is typical, or happens in contracts like this would be that the architect is the only body that can reject non-conforming work, and the architect would reject that work if we ask the architect to. So what Maxwell said is, okay, what if a parent drives by, they don't like the arch, they grab Mrs. Nance, and they just Mrs. Nance and that parent reject this work, and then we don't know if it's conforming or not, and it's the whole thing, and then we got to shut down for the day, right? So they want efficiency, which does benefit us. So if we just say, okay, only Terry Lansing can reject the work, and we can tell Terry to do that, then the same thing would happen. Parent sees it, contact Mrs. Nance, and Mrs. Nance contact Mr. Giller, Mr. Giller says, Terry, go look at that archway, and it's in the conform, faces that you're right, then we still have all our single protections as far as making sure the work is done. So I think that's good language. Favor Drinker thinks that's good language. Favor Drinker is in favor of all of these scenarios that I've presented tonight, but because they're significant, I wanted the board to call them before you.
I'll be honest, I like the way you guys have this, that pauses it on here. It agrees. Really can't sue us or go back on us or anything. Here it is. You're late, you owe us, period. That's good. Sure, Mr. Connect has a lot of questions here.
Well, no, if you understand this stuff, and, I'm not an attorney and I'm not construction, so I don't.
Give me 1 second. Termination for agents.
Yes.
Here. Because typically that is what we're saying that drinker, whatever they do, obviously, are in favor of that.
Well, so the reason why that condition would be okay is because the only party that can terminate it, really the only party that could say,
So we're the only, I've dealt with for either party.
yes,
So it's, we're the only one who can terminate the
yes.
Maxwell.
If Maxwell were to terminate the project, they would be breached, and then they would be subject to all damages. So in this provision, right, the reason why it would be okay, just us. And it is, it's there mostly again for private companies, and private companies that say, well, if you go bankrupt, there's got, we've got to pick up the pieces here, and they would stop work, so they have their remaining fee without paying out additional costs. I think to Maxwell, the reason why they wanted, usually just, if the owner terminates for convenience, usually just everyone walks away. Now Maxwell is in a little bit different position, and Kurt, when they presented, and the reason they're such a great candidate for our team, which is great to work with them, is because they're saying, look, this is going to be our, basically our only project, we're going to commit everything to you guys. So they were saying, we're going to be protected, because if you do have to terminate for convenience, we've given up all this other work. So that's why it's fair, any work that
One more question.
Yes.
As far as change orders, there are any change orders, is there anywhere in there where it stipulates before contract signed what the rates will be charged? Because in previous years, we've had situations where it's done. I mean, you know what the wages are going to be, but it's going to be certified too. And does that have to be part of the contract or the rest of the bill, takes an hours, where that hourly rate is?
Yeah. And we'll be able to, exactly, we'll be able to reject the change orders when they come in. So they'll, with the change order process, they will need to ask for, advocate for basically an amendment to the contract. So if they want to spend $1 over what we promised, then they have to say, okay, here's material costs, here's their labor costs, and if we don't want to do it, we reject it. And so that would be, every change order will essentially be another arm's length negotiation between the board and Maxwell and Mr. Gale. You can authorize smaller change orders and how that piece for that, but we'll be able to control that every month.
But it's nice to know what their rates are.
I don't know exactly, that's a good question, I need that for you. I don't know, we don't have such yet, and there is part of the contract that calls for a list of stuff, but the way the project is here is we're only bidding these tier one stuff, so I'll answer your question as to whether it will have labor schedules and how much you get and all that.
So some project can be subject to regulation.
I don't know if that's.
It's not just the law change. Anything else, Mr. Green?
All right, thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Dale's, I thank you guys, and, I like it. So, I mean, we can see it all and everything. First, yeah. Like, go ahead.
We got to get the contract. You gotta finalize it, right? It's not final.
Correct.
Send out like a finalized copy and maybe just highlight what you got, and add it, because I know you discussed it all night, but seeing it in writing.
Yeah.
We got questions.
We'll say, hey, absolutely, we'll send you our red line copy, which show all the edits, and we even have red, green, purple, we've gone very deep with back and forth at every phase. We'll send that to you, then you'll also get the final contract, and of course, where it approves the final contract. Thank you.
All right. That is it, Mr. Gailey. Anything else? All right, this special meeting is closed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill, Zach, thanks again, though, man.
Thank you.